ever Trump Day dinner. And I am proud to say that the Villagers for Trump, volunteers, board, everybody's worked so hard for the last year, has come together to make this happen. I'm going to go into a little detail on that later, but first I want Bishop Cotto to take over with the prayer, the pledge, and we're going to have Josh Taylor sing the national anthem. Thank you.
Good evening. One of the things that I love in our president, he pours faith back into the house. He faces God back to the White House. America will become better again, okay? For that, you know, we have a good practice here, a good habit, really. We always like to start our meetings with prayer and invocation. And we choose different pastors from the local area. And today we have the honor of having Pastor Shannon back. He's from First Baptist Church of Leesburg, Village Campus.
Thank you, Samuel. I think, considering the fact that we have such a celebration to enjoy tonight, that we would be remiss if we didn't consider the tragedy that happened over the weekend in Pittsburgh with some of the folks who are our friends and allies. So let's just take a moment and consider the reality of what it means to be someone who is in pursuit of a relationship with God, and sometimes it ends in such a tragic way. So let's just bow our heads before the Lord and take just a moment to consider that before I pray. Father, we thank you that you love us. And we thank you that you love the Jewish people. According to Genesis chapter 12, they are your people. Abraham is the father of many nations. And we pray, God, their privilege. Pray, God, the protection of the folks in Pittsburgh and around this world as they consider making Israel their home in pursuit of that land that you gave them some thousands of years ago. Father, we celebrate why we are here. This is such a great city and a great state, a great nation and a great world that you've permitted us to live in. We thank you for what it is. It's a privilege to be here, Lord, and to gather in this place tonight to celebrate oneness and unity. We just pray, God, your wisdom to leaders across this city and this state, our president and his administration. Lord, the elections that are coming up, even now as early voting is taking place in the weeks to come, we just pray, God, your divine sovereignty. You are a good God and you know what's best for us. And to that end we pray. Thank you so much for why we are here. Pray your blessings on our time, those who will speak, the food that is presented to us, those who have prepared it, we are thankful for it. And it is in the strong name of Jesus we pray all these things. Amen.
Amen. Today we have a double treat. We have a group of young men have come to do our Pledge of Allegiance. They come from First Baptist Church in Leesburg. They're called Trail Life USA, Troop 1440. But today we're going to have Paul Farrell, who's 15 years old, actually lead our pledge. So you don't mind please standing up with us? Paul, let's come up.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, young men, for coming here and helping us with the pledge, and thank you for Pastor for coming and doing that invocation. Our next event will be, we are going to have the national anthem by Josh Taylor.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I didn't want to give Josh the accolades he's due until after he did the national anthem. But there's a little bit about him in our program. He's going to end up having videos for sale later on. I got to meet him thanks to Sherry McKnight here up at the Alachua. They called it a barbecue. I called it a Lincoln Day dinner. And then he sang up at the Trump Hotel when Bill O'Reilly came with Nick Adams. It was a great show. It really was. Great guy. Okay, everyone sit down. We're all set here. I have to do some opening remarks here. It's going to take about 5 minutes or so before we start our program. Now, I bet you a lot of you in here wonder how this Trump Club, Villages for Trump, got to be 1,075 strong. Why would 70-year-old plus people want to go out and put all the effort and time that we've been doing to start this organization? The reason is we love our president. We love seeing someone come back that is honoring our Constitution, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, that respect what the Founding Fathers did. And we are all as patriotic as could be. Now, we have a few entries in here. We have pictures of the last year. We have our cart parade pictures. I want to let you know, everything is to honor President Trump and support his candidates, and especially right now, Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott. I mean, we got to get to the polls and get those guys. Now, as I said, we all are out to promote the president. Read our mission statement in there, and you could see why we are. Now, this is a Judeo-Christian nation, and President Trump is following track. His daughter is converted to Judaism because her husband is of the Jewish faith, and look what he did for Israel. He put our embassy there, recognized it as the capital, everything. Now, here's something I just read online just yesterday. Rabbi, I guess it's Shmuley, heard about what happened in Pittsburgh. And he came out with a statement to tell everybody about how wrong Joe Biden was his evaluation of it, and to amplify how Biden and Obama supported people that were anti-Semitic all through the campaign. And I'm glad to see a man of faith, of the Jewish faith, come out and do it. Now, I have a little story about how I put Judaism and Christianity together. I was in Israel in 1999, and it was the trip of my life. Historically, spiritually, the whole bit. It was the best. And I was with 50 Southern Baptists, and back then you had to be Jewish to be a guide. I don't know if that's still the rule today, but back then you did. And this little guy, Mike Rohoff, he was on the ball, really sharp. I think if we had a Bible quiz and we took our 50 together and come up with an answer, he would have won. And the Southern Baptist women were on him all the time about promoting Christianity. And we were down in Masada, and we were going to be driving up to Tiberias. And Mike gets on the PA of the bus, and this is what he says. He says, "Listen, everybody, I have two of my best friends. One's a Pentecostal minister, and one is a rabbi." He says, "My rabbi friend went up to the Pentecostal minister and said, we believe the same." And the Pentecostal minister said, whoa, what do you mean we believe the same? He says, "Yes, we're waiting for the Savior to come. The only thing we're going to ask him if it's his first trip or his second. But we do believe the same." So this Judeo-Christian thing is just, it's been a part of me and my faith all along. Now, 1 second here, I lost my place. But I'll be there in a second. Now, the Founding Fathers, I believe they felt this way too. Let me give you a few quotes. Patrick Henry: "If I could leave each of my children $1 million, but could not leave them a heritage of faith in God, I will leave them nothing of value, unfit to face life. The Bible is worth all the other books which have been ever printed." George Washington: "It is impossible to rightly govern the world without God and the Bible." Thomas Jefferson: "The Bible is the cornerstone of liberty. I've always said, I always will say, that the studious perusal of the sacred volume will make better citizens, better fathers, and better husbands." Horace Greeley: "It is impossible to enslave initially or socially a Bible-reading people. The principles of the Bible are the groundwork of human freedom." I could go on. I'm going to do Daniel Webster, our namesake of our congressman here. "If we abide by the principles taught in the Bible, our country will go on prospering and to prosper. But if our prosperity neglect its instruction and authority, no man can tell how suddenly a catastrophe may overwhelm us and bury us." So our Founding Fathers established this country from, remember, running away from King George and the Church of England. And then they formed the basis of our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. I mean, look at the Supreme Court. It has the 10 lawmakers of the Bill of Rights, but Moses is up there with the 10 Commandments. So I don't have to go any further. Now, before I finish, I'm going to bring up one thing that I could call it a sermon and a lesson in history at the same time. These are all facts. I got this from a book, and no one knows who the author is. He was anonymous. Anonymous author made the striking comparison. Socrates taught for 40 years, Plato for 50, and Aristotle for 40. Christ only taught for 3. Yet the influence of Christ's 3-year ministry infinitely transcends the impact left by the combined 130 years of teaching these men who are the greatest philosophers of all antiquity. He painted no pictures, but some of the finest paintings of Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci received their inspiration from him. He wrote no poetry, but Dante, Milton, and scores of the world's famous poets were inspired by him. He composed no music, but Haydn, Handel, Beethoven, Bach, and Mendelssohn reached their highest perfection of melody in hymns, symphonies, and oratorios composed in his praise. Every sphere of human greatness has been enriched by this humble carpenter of Nazareth. His unique contribution to race and men is the salvation of souls. Philosophy could not accomplish it, not art, not literature, than music. Only he can speak peace to the human heart, strengthen the weak, and give life to those who are spiritually dead. That's what our founding fathers based this country about. Thank you for hearing me out on that, and now we're going to move on with the program. Okay, we are now going to have acknowledge. Where's Mike? Mike's there with the microphone. We're going to acknowledge our elected officials and people running for office, and then Amy Achowi, who's in charge of Villagers for Trump, for having forming a nomination committee, is going to say a few words also. We're going to have Congressman Webster speak first. There he's right there with the mic. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your presence.
Here tonight, I thank you so much for this opportunity, for all of you who come to support our great president, Donald Trump. And we're excited about him, excited what he's doing for our ticket, knowing that we're close. Look, we don't want to lose the House. We don't want to make little gains in the Senate. We want to do something. We want to make it all happen. We don't want to become just aesthetic. And so this type of dinner, charging people up, getting as many people out. I mean, why is the president going to Fort Myers? That's where the Republicans are. He wants to turn them out. And we've got to. And we've got to get as many as we can to the polls. We're doing everything we can. I'm just impressed by this and the way you've done it. Put it on, and we'll just get everybody pumped up. And we'll talk to our neighbors, get them turned out, and we're going to bring it home. So it's exciting. Thanks for having me.
We said we have the REC chairman of Lake County here, Walter Price, the REC chairman of Rocky Stacy of Marion County, and the REC chairman of Sumter County, John Calandro. And I assure you, these guys are working to get those votes out. They really are. Where's Miss O'Shea?
Right here.
Okay, good enough. Mike's going to come over with the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. We are looking for great people to be on the board. You can already see in the last year how fast this club has become a real club. I mean, it's really impressive. David Gee, he started this, he ran it, and he got so many people involved, and it's an incredible thing. So what we're looking for is other people who want to be a participant in this board, and I want you to send an email to me or sign up through the Villages for Trump website. And please, we really need some good people. It's a great club. It's an exciting time, so I really encourage you. People, you think that you don't have something to bring to the table, but there are so many people who bring so much to the table. And we really need you to sign up. Come in, interview. We got several board positions open, and we really encourage you to get involved. So, and obviously everybody here is involved because you came here tonight. So we really appreciate it. But please, let us know. We'll set up an interview with you. You have until December 1st to let us know that you're involved or you want to be a part of that board. Thank you very much.
Has Miss Nunez arrived? Oh, Miss Nunez, you're here. Good. Congressman DeSantis came to the Villages twice. And I mean, he was impressed with us. In fact, he sent a bus up to get us to go to his Orlando event. I think we had more Villagers for Trump there than all the other people together. But anyway, he went out of his way to try to make it tonight, but he couldn't make it. He has a prior engagement, and he sent up his lieutenant governor to be Miss Jeanette Nunez. And I received apologies from her for not making it to the VIP, but she wants to come up and speak now.
Good evening. What a pleasure to be here with you. And yes, Congressman DeSantis does send his regrets. He knows that the path to victory runs right through this room. So we're excited about the campaign. We're excited about everything that you all are doing. And it's such a privilege for me to be here with such great colleagues, Senator Baxley, who I've served with in the House, and now he's moved on to the Senate, and obviously a champion and someone that we know that has done so much for the Republican Party, Congressman Webster. But we are very excited because we feel like the campaign in the final stretch is really going in the right direction. We've seen the momentum shift. I don't know those of you that were able to watch the debates, but we certainly know that we're on the right side of the issue. We know that we're on the right side of the law, and we know that ultimately we'll come out on the right side of the election. And so for us, it's critically important that everyone in this room, because this is not my usual crowd, I usually have to do some convincing. I think I'm pretty sure that in this room, given the type of folks that are in here tonight, that we're in good shape. I would hope to say, come November 6th, we have all of this show. But it's not just enough to ask for your support and your vote, and I know a few of you already told me that you've already voted, and we're excited about that. We need you to tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your colleagues, because I can tell you that for me, in my lifetime, this is the most critical election. And I know politicians like to say that, and I'm sure you've heard it said once or twice, but I honestly believe it, and I'll tell you why. Because the divide, the stark contrast between our opponent, Andrew Gillum, and Ron DeSantis could not be more clear. The differences are real, the ideology is real, and when you look at what Andrew Gillum stands for, and when you look at what Ron stands for, Ron is a man that I know needs no introduction here to this group, but he's a veteran, and for those of you that have served our country, thank you. If you could please raise your hand, because you all deserve a huge step forward. Thank you for your service, and I can assure you that no one will be a better friend to veterans than Ron DeSantis, because he understands. He's worn the uniform, he knows what it takes, he has a record of service both on the battlefield and also as a prosecutor, and more recently in D.C., and we know that's no easy task, right, Congressman? So we're committed to making sure that we protect the ideals that we all hold dear. We're committed to working with President Trump. Our opponent is running on a platform to impeach President Trump. Can you imagine? He's running commercials, and then he tries to say, oh no, I can work with the president, I can make sure that we're advancing Florida's agenda. That's not going to happen. When you run on a platform to impeach our president, and we don't even know what for, how do you think you're going to be able to advance the interests of Floridians? It's not going to happen. Ron DeSantis is the person that's going to be able to, on day one, deliver for Florida, deliver for everyone sitting here, because he knows how to work with the president, he knows the key people in the administration, and he's going to be someone that's going to make sure to promote the same agenda. All the good things that are happening, whether it's in D.C. or in Tallahassee, it doesn't happen by accident. It requires good leadership. And I can tell you, over the past 8 years, I've had the privilege of serving in the House of Representatives, and with Governor Scott and his leadership, we've done a lot to make sure that Florida is continuing to grow, whether it's our economy and our tax cuts, that we've been able to cut over $10 billion and reduce regulations that is choking small businesses and large alike. We're making sure that we're committed to Florida's economy. And I can tell you, Andrew Gillum, on his 40% tax hike, he's going to do everything he can to destroy businesses throughout the state of Florida. When you look at the types of people that are coming to Florida and moving on a daily basis, you see 1,000 people a day leaving states like California, leaving states like New York, leaving states like Illinois. And why do you think they're leaving those states? It's not because of our wonderful beaches and our great theme parks. It's because they recognize that bad economic policies create bad conditions for their citizens. And so Florida's committed to being a low-tax state. Florida's committed to continuing to grow jobs and continue to reduce our unemployment. And Ron DeSantis is the person that's going to do that. And so I ask you, thank you, I ask you to join me in this journey, because as I said at the onset, it truly is the most critical election we'll see because of the types of the ideology and the differences between the two candidates. Andrew Gillum is someone that has signed freedom papers from this group called the Dream Defenders, and I'm sure some of you have heard of it, but maybe some of you haven't. I would encourage you to Google that when you get home this evening and look at the dangerous policies that Andrew Gillum has signed his name to. There are things like defunding police, removing police and prison from our society. It's anti-Semitic, it's anti-police, and it's anti-Florida, because what he has signed his name to and the groups that he has aligned himself with, the likes of Bernie Sanders and others, should scare us all to our core right here this evening, because I know all of you are freedom-loving patriots, and we're not going to allow him to destroy Florida, and we're not going to allow him to destroy our relationship with President Trump. Lastly, what I would tell you is that we're focused on making sure that our communities are safe, making sure that our people are safe, because we can have a great economy, we can have a great environment, and we can have great education, but if our communities are unsafe, that is all for naught. And as a mother of 3, that's a singular focus for me, to make sure my children are safe, make sure my community is safe. And I can tell you, Andrew Gillum's track record is something that should also shake you to your core. Because as mayor of Tallahassee, he has seen crime grow year after year after year. So much so that last year, Tallahassee, the city of Tallahassee, had a record number of murders. And I can tell you that he has done absolutely nothing to stand with the men and women in law enforcement. And for those heroes that protect us on a daily basis, they know that Ron DeSantis and Jeanette Nunez will stand with them, we will support them, and we will give them the resources they need to keep us safe. So I'll end on this. I know that you all are very, very, very loyal supporters of Ron. I know that you all are going to take your duty and your privilege to vote very seriously. I have no doubt that in this room we can count on your support. But we really do need that last push, because early voting is taking place, and I don't know those of you that are tracking it on a daily basis, our margins continue to narrow in terms of the number of Republican voters versus Democrat voters. The other side is energized. They're revved up. They're chanting and they're doing all kinds of things that would make us sick to our stomach. And I don't know if those of you saw our Volusia County victory office. The windows were shot at last night. Thankfully, nobody was there. But it's a scary time. We are living in scary times. But I can assure you that Ron DeSantis and I are not going to bury our heads in the sand. We're going to stand tall, we're going to stand proud, and we're going to stand for each and every one of you Floridians that deserve good leadership. So I hope you join us. I hope you'll get as many people to vote, and I thank you all so very much for your support.
We had to change the schedule around a little because Ms. Nunez apologizes for being a little late, and she has a big commitment up in, I think it's Jacksonville in the morning, and she has to get on the road. Next, which I was going to do before, but I wanted to help her out time-wise, is I wanted to acknowledge our sponsors and my committee. We had in the back page, you'll see an acknowledgement for the gold sponsors. The only one I want to bring up is Bear's Concession. Would you please stand, Brian? There he is. Thank you. moderator and full-page ad. Read the ad. He has a unique business in Lake County, and he's here to support us. The next one is the South Lake Republican Club. But the nuts and bolts behind that is Bill Seigenthaler from South Lake Quick Print. Bill is the one who printed this whole program here, and I'll tell you, him and I spent endless hours on it with his wife Jessie, and I was down there many nights and driving long hours at night. But Bill, let me go a little further. When I was campaign chairman for Mr. Trump for Lake County, if I didn't have this guy behind me, I would have gone nowhere. He provided more literature for Sumter County, Lake County. He went and redid the storefront at the Lake County REC that it looks like a building now. I mean, the guy is just unbelievable. I can't say enough about that. The next thing, our bronze sponsors are Congressman Webster and Brett Haig, who is running for Florida District 33. Michael, could you bring the mic over to you don't have it. Where is it? Where'd the mic go? Okay, here we go. Brett, I want you to say a few words. If there's any other elected officials or running for office in the room that would like to, we just want to give you a minute, that's all, but I want you to acknowledge who you are.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for this fine event. It's an honor to be here tonight to support the Trump Club and, of course, to support our great president. But tonight I want to take a minute and not talk about any of that. I want to honor the people that are at my table tonight. We have Betsy Nolan, we have Sue Roper, Lou Maruzzo, and his wife Sue Maruzzo, all veterans. So thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Are there any other officials running for office or elected officials in the room? We just want to acknowledge them. Oh, okay, we have Anthony Sabatini here. Anthony, would you just a quick few words.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Anthony Sabatini. Lived here in Lake County my whole life, running for District 32, the rest of Lake County, and not this northwest part. But just think we need to really bring it home on November 6th and make sure we have a Republican in the governor's mansion.
Thank you.
And in the Senate. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Barbara Price here is running for the North. Guys, she's going to say it. I don't want to say it wrong.
Hi, I'm Barbara Price. I'm running for the North Lake County Hospital Board, Seat 2. It's wonderful to be here in this room with like-minded people.
Thank you. Anyone else here? Please, rise up. Oh, here.
I'll get to you.
We have Marcos Flores here. Marcos took an ad. He supported us for this site. We want to thank you for that.
Thank you. My name is Marcos Flores. I'm for Wildwood City Commissioner. It's definitely been a journey for me, former law enforcement. So this side's definitely been a journey. So I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor, and thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else would like to be recognized? Oh, here we have Pastor Strickland over here.
I'm Bill Strickland, running for City Commissioner, Seat 4 in Wildwood. I've been pastoring at Oxford Seminary for 33 years, almost 34, and I've been active as in the community all those years as president of the Ministerial Association and bless Wildwood and announce the Wildwood football games, and I've been chairman of the year, or volunteer of the year for the Sumter School System several times, and also received the award for the Rotarian Humanitarian of the Year. So I feel like I'm qualified to run for City Commission, and I'm looking forward to asking for your vote. And just like everybody else, please get everybody out to vote because it's so critical.
Thank you. Here we have Senator Baxley here.
I am your Senator, Dennis Baxley. Thank you. And I'm telling you, I do not need any sharp left turns. Florida's on the right track. We need Ron DeSantis. I don't want gridlock, Washington gridlock to come to Tallahassee. So thank you.
Okay, can we move on with the program now? Oh, we have someone else here. One more.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Mobilian, and I'm running for City Commissioner in District 2 over in the Villages. With the first time that the Villages is going to have representation on the City Commission.
What city?
So I look forward to support. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to acknowledge my committee. I've acknowledged all of the volunteers for the Village of Trump. Without them, we couldn't have grown the way we did. But I want to give a special acknowledgement to Erica Yeager, who's responsible for all these tables, all these settings. She just took care of everything. All I had to do was call her and she made the job happen. And I'll tell you, she ran the Judge Janine event for us, and you saw what a success that was. Marilee Fisk, I have to acknowledge her. Without her, she was at events with the credit card swiper, through the computer, signing people up, never said no to me. Well, Art Rogers next to her also volunteered. He now houses our Melania and Donald thing. And he brings it to all our events. And I know this next acknowledgement, I'll make it real quick because the guy gets all upset when I overdo it. And David Gee was the engine to our Trump train. Let me tell you, he was the engine to our Trump train. Now we're going to have, who's supposed to be our first speaker, but because the Lieutenant Governor to be was under a tight schedule, I've known Nick Adams for a year now. I had him here at he was the first guest speaker at our first Trump thing. Nick is a patriot of patriots. He's from Australia, and he humbles me at the love he has for this country. And he uses a word that Alexis de Tocqueville used to use when he came here in the 1800s, exceptionalism. He talks about it. I'm just going to say one more thing about Nick. You could read his bio in here. You could go online and Flag USA. But in the 8-9 months that I've known Nick, he has 250,000 books in all 50 states to teach our grammar school kids the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We're so proud to have
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What an honor, pleasure, and privilege it is to be here with you tonight. I want to extend my profound gratitude to a few very special people here in this audience. I want to pay tribute to my great friends, Don and Marva Sumner, who've come all the way from Ocala. Long way. Put your hands together for them. Tony and Sherry McKnight. Where are you, Sherry? There you go. Tony and Sherry McKnight from Gainesville. I'd also like to make particular mention of David Gee, who I know has stewarded this club. And lastly, Jim Volpe. Now, you really can't get much more of a patriot than Jim Volpe. Thank you for everything. He also makes a very mean stuffed lobster. Anybody that's had the chance to partake in that is incredibly fortunate. Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor, pleasure, and privilege it is to be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the world's exceptional nation, in civilization's indispensable country. And to top it all off, if all of that weren't enough, right here in the great state of Florida. A state that was instrumental in securing the 45th presidency of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you a story. And as I share this story with you, I invite you to momentarily close your eyes and really imagine what it is that I'm sharing with you. It's December of 1985. Two parents are at their wits' end. Something is wrong with their 16-month-old child. For months they've been to doctor after doctor, pediatrician after pediatrician, but nobody can tell them what is wrong. One night, with their child even more unsettled than usual, they head to the emergency ward of the local children's hospital. The ward is almost deserted, but there's one overnight doctor there, a young man with a smiling face and an accent. As he looks the child over, his smile quickly evaporates. He tells the parents that he can't be sure, but he has a hunch that he may have seen this before, and he fears that their child has a very rare form of childhood cancer. He prescribes a certain set of tests to be undertaken and commands the parents to return with their child the first thing the very next morning. The very next day, the parents' worst fears would be confirmed. Their child had stage 4 neuroblastoma, a very rare form of childhood cancer indeed. The parents were mine. The child was me. The doctor, it turned out, was an American. The cause of neuroblastoma remains unknown to this day, with only 1 in 100,000 children being diagnosed with it each year. Notoriously difficult to diagnose when it is, the tumour has almost always already metastasised. A child, an infant, a baby with stage 4 neuroblastoma is given just a 5% chance of life. Only 1 in 20 survive. For 3.5 years I underwent chemotherapy, radiotherapy and an operation. And through the healing hands of God, our master physician, I defied the odds and lived. It was the instincts of an American doctor, fresh out of college, just in Australia for a summer residency, that proved crucial to my survival. So I haven't only studied American exceptionalism, I've lived it. In fact, I'm alive because of it. Since that early adversity, I have been unstoppable. I was the valedictorian of my school. I was publicly elected to political office at the age of 19, becoming one of the youngest ever elected councilmen in Sydney, Australia. The first election I ever voted in, I voted for myself. It's all been downhill since then. Just 8 days after my 21st birthday, on the 13th of September 2005, I was elected the youngest deputy mayor in Australian history in Sydney, a record which still stands to this day. I am a 4-time New York Times best-selling author, and I had the distinction of being the first author to have ever had a book endorsed by a sitting president of the United States. And that honour was bestowed upon me on the 3rd of March last year when President Trump took to Twitter, where else, to declare that my book, Green Card Warrior, was a must-read and that I was a great American. He followed it up 6 months later on the 25th of August last year by endorsing my previous book, Retaking America, Crushing Political Correctness. It does sound like his kind of book, doesn't it? Making me the only author to have had 2 books endorsed by a sitting president of the United States. And in fact, the president was photographed last year with Retaking America under his arm as he was boarding Marine One on his way to Camp David, which has prompted many in the media to rather generously refer to me as the president's favourite author. So that has been quite the journey. Many of you will recognise me from television. I'm a Fox News and Fox Business commentator. I serve as a surrogate for the White House. I have spoken in 6 different countries and in 36 of the 50 states. Worldwide, I am recognized as an authority on American exceptionalism. In fact, I have decided to dedicate my life to promoting, protecting, and perpetuating what I consider to be the greatest idea ever, the American idea. To top all of that off, if all of that weren't enough, on the 29th of July, 2016, after 4.5 long, torturous and arduous years, including a stint on the no-fly list, courtesy of the Obama administration and John Kerry's State Department, and close to $50,000 later, I finally legally immigrated to the United States of America. So, what is it that I believe? I believe in God, personal responsibility, the sanctity of human life, limited government, a strong national defence, the right to bear arms, the State of Israel. Up there with all of those things, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the United States of America. And if there is one take-home message that I have for you tonight, if there is one thing that I want you to recall as you go home and rest your head on your cold pillow this evening, it is this. Despite the undeniable, incontrovertible and indisputable challenges, problems and threats currently afflicting the United States of America, this is still easily, by far and away, hands down, head and shoulders, the greatest country in the history of the world. Every single time I speak in front of an elementary school, middle school, public high school or college audience, I look those students in the eyes and I tell them that the day that they were born in the United States of America is the day that they won the lottery of life. And they got the most incredible, the most amazing, the most remarkable, the most sensational head start on anyone and everyone everywhere else. This is the best country in the world to be born in. This is the best country in the world to live in. This is the best country in the world to work in. This is the best country in the world to start a business in. This is the best country in the world to realise a dream. This is the only country in the world where success is not yet resented but still admired and aspired to. This is the only country in the world where you can colour outside of the lines and not be punished. This is the only country in the world where your first language or last name means absolutely nothing. This is the only country in the world where you can rise above any set of circumstances to go on to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. This is the only country in the world where you can start with nothing and make absolutely everything. And this is the only country in the world where failure is not fatal, where you can fall down 5,000 times, but if you've got grit, determination and hustle, you can get up 5,001. Thomas Edison had 1,000 cracks at the light bulb. Colonel Harlan Sanders had his recipe for fried chicken rejected 1,009 times before he got a taker. Abraham Lincoln lost 14 elections on the trot. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice, almost 3 times. Same story with Henry Ford. America's a unique place. After all, where else can you go bankrupt 3 times and become president of the United States of America? You see, ladies and gentlemen, America is special because America is not just a country, not simply a stretch of land, not merely a geographic entity. America is an idea. It is an ideal, a notion, an improbable and daring experiment that remains just as improbable and daring today. It's the hope that banishes all hopelessness. It's the shot that was heard around the world and still is. There are 4 ways that a nation is said to be exceptional: culturally, militarily, economically, and scientifically. And on each of those 4 measurements, in almost 5,000 years of recorded human history, with less than 5% of the world's population, with less than 5% of the world's population, America has dominated those four spheres to an extent previously considered impossible. But none of that success, none of that power, none of that might, none of that wealth, none of that influence just happened. None of it was accidental. None of it was incidental. No, to the contrary. All of it was extraordinarily deliberate, extremely intentional. You see, the most brilliant men to have ever walked this earth were our founders, who understood that the way to unlocking human ingenuity, the way to unleashing human creativity, the way to driving human accomplishment was to make sure that men and women were as unencumbered as possible by the need for government approvals and red tape. It's for precisely the same reason that the United States of America has ascended to the position of guardian of liberty, as the custodian of civilization. I want you to contemplate for just a moment what the world might look like without the United States of America. North Korea would invade South Korea. Taiwan would be overrun by China. War, maybe nuclear, would break out in the Middle East. Russia would attempt to rebuild the Soviet Empire. Islamic terrorists would act with complete impunity. Tyrants in North Africa would run around even more mercilessly than what they already do. Cataclysmic natural disasters would have no concerted, coordinated response effort. Individual liberty would gradually diminish and ultimately become extinct. That's what a world without the United States of America looks like. And that's why it's in the interest of everyone, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you do, what bathroom you elect to use, which one of the new 57 different genders you choose to identify with. Even if you have never so much as even set your little toe on American soil, it's in your interests that America be as robust, as self-assertive, as self-confident, and as healthy as possible. Why? Because the equation is really simple. What is good for America is good for the world. When America is strong, the world is strong. When America is weak, the world is a weak and dangerous place. Now, that's not my hypothesis that I scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin after a few too many drinks at the Eisenhower Recreation Center, a few too many highlights. We were living that reality real time, up until just 22 months ago, when we had elites at the highest levels of the federal government that were insistent on ensuring that America retreated in the world, that it vacated its traditional role of leading from the front and instead chose to lead from behind. The result, while the world is now calming with this new administration, the world still remains infinitely more dangerous than it has been for a very, very long period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to return at the end of this evening to tell you exactly what we have to do and why we have to do it. To keep the country that we love, to keep the civilization that we know, and to preserve all of those values and all of those principles that make this nation the exception to the rule on every single count. So, for the time being, remember, this is the greatest country in the world, but we have to do a lot to keep it that way. Thank you, and God bless you.
Josh is going to sing another song, but I want Sherry McKnight to officially introduce him. Sherry will come back there with a mic, so you don't have to go too far. Michael, Sherry's in the back room. Sherry is the state committee woman for Alachua County. I've been to a couple of her events. She's a patriot. She does more to help President Trump's program than just about anybody. And she is the one who introduced me to Josh Taylor. Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, thank you so much for having this amazing evening. Thank you all for us being here and for the opportunity to introduce my very, very, very dear friend, someone that I used to ask to sing at various political events, and he nailed it, just like he nailed this national anthem. And I said, you know what, I think we can do even more. So he's going to sing another song, some original songs for the rest of the night. I'll tell you what this one is in just a minute, but I would like you to know that this is Trichord Music, an excluded media recording artist, Joshua Taylor, who will be singing We the People, an original song written by Josh Taylor. Thank you.
That's the way to get announced right there. I hate to tell you, that's awesome. We got together and we said, you know, we want to write a song that is a song that can be patriotic and that everybody can enjoy. And here's our feeble attempt at that song, or our humble attempt rather, because I think it's a great song. It's called We the People. I hope you guys enjoy it this evening. If tomorrow was a memory, where would we be? Could we break the chains of history? And let's build a bridge across the great divide. The only way to do this is side by side. We the people. To show what love can be. We the people, America great again. Let's be the change and give hope a name. Sending a message that this light still shines.
I'll tell you, every event I go to all over the state of Florida with a Republican message for our president, there's Peter Feeman. I tell you, he's everywhere. He is our state committee man for the National Republican Party, and he's a true asset and a true champion to our cause. Let me welcome Peter Feeman up to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be back in the villages. You guys, I can tell you what, at the RNC in Washington, D.C., you are known that the so-called blue wave comes to the villages and crashes into a great big red wall. That's it. I have a lot of friends in the audience. Thank you, Jim, by the way, for inviting me here tonight. I don't want to start mentioning everybody because I'll miss somebody, then I'll get in big trouble. I love, of course, though, I can't help but mention Dennis Baxley, Congressman Wexler, you guys, Congressman Webster. You guys are great patriots, great servants. Thank you for all that you guys do. You heard Jeanette Nunez tell us that this is the most important midterm election since in our lifetime. You've heard Sean Hannity say the same thing. The RNC knows it. We are all in Florida. We're committing millions and millions of dollars. By tomorrow, we'll have knocked on 3 million doors for our governor candidate, Ron DeSantis, and for Rick Scott. We are all in. I'll tell you what a difference one election makes. 3 years ago, when I would go around to different places and speak on behalf of the RNC, I had to wear a flak jacket. Now, when I say the name Lindsey Graham, I don't get boos, I get applause. Can you believe that? But I want to give a more historical perspective on why these midterms in 2018 truly are the most important midterms ever. And in order for us to really get a feeling, because my goal here tonight, I know that all of you have voted or will vote. I know that all of you have friends that have voted or will vote. But I want to exhort you tonight, when I talk about why this election is so important, to go the extra mile. Go to the Democrat that you're afraid of and talk to that person. Go to the NPA or the independent that you've never dared approach and approach them. Because when I get done putting this in context, I hope you'll agree with me. I went to my shoe repair guy last week. English is not his first language. He is a voter. And I said, what do you think of the caravan? He's a first-generation American. He said, it's terrible, and I'm glad we have President Trump to stop them. Boy, was I surprised. There's a Spanish-speaking first-generation American. They get it, so we all must be bold. So let me tell you a little bit about this. And Nick, your words were fantastic. Putting it into context, what a great historic country this is. 400 years ago, that's where I want to start. 400 years ago, John Winthrop from England led his fellow Puritans out of England to a new world. And in that 17th century, he prophesied, and I choose that word on purpose. John Winthrop, as he led his Puritans to what would become New England, prophesied that America would become a new Jerusalem, a city on a hill that would become a light to the rest of the world. He delivered this message on board his ship as it approached what would become New England. Here's what he said. The eyes of the world will be upon us. We are as a city upon a hill raised up. You may think you're in the howling wilderness. You may think we are out beyond the farthest beyond. But in fact, God's providence is such that as the latter days begin to unfold, this may indeed be the city, the New Jerusalem, that is unfolding before not only our eyes, but the eyes of the world. Surely astounding and prophetic words by John Winthrop. So a nation was birthed, unique in all of history, as Nick told us. A new young nation was being formed to show the rest of the world the way to this new Jerusalem. And so after the Great Awakening, that we had in the early part of the 18th century. The Declaration of Independence and other great writings are penned. And within the Declaration of Independence is contained the most crucial and historic phrase which would change how freedom thinkers view the role of government forever. And what did Thomas Jefferson write? You all know the words. We are all endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And so, for the first time in human history, a government is established based upon the proposition that our rights come not from a pharaoh, not from a monarch, not from a dictator, not from a king, but from Almighty God Himself. And what God grants, no man can take away, no government can take away, no person can take away. So, for the first time in human history, a government is formed that says our rights come from God, and we form a government to protect those rights, not to, Mr. Obama, dispense those rights. And so I believe God honored that. And America in the 19th century prospered like John Winthrop and those early senators could never have imagined. And then what happened 90 years later in 1865, this nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, survives a horrible civil war. And in 1860, to ensure that his government of the people, by the people, and for the people should not perish, God raised up two leaders, two outsiders, two people that back then the political establishment would have never chosen to be our leaders. I'm talking about, of course, Abraham Lincoln that Nick mentioned earlier tonight, and I'm talking about Ulysses S. Grant, the most political outsider you could get, a drunkard, which Lincoln said, if he's a drunk and he keeps winning like that, then ship him all the whiskey he can drink, as long as he keeps winning. And in fact, General Grant and others continued to save this nation that God ordained. Now, Abraham Lincoln, also a political outsider. They all fought their demons. Did God know that that same nation that He ordained in 1776 and that He sustained in 1865 would be called upon 80 years later in the 20th century to perform a task only one nation could have ever accomplished? In the 20th century, in World War II, America, our America, literally saved the world, and from God's point of view, saves His chosen people from certain annihilation. Let's dwell on that for a minute. During 1941 to 1944, America was the only nation on earth capable of systematically defeating simultaneously the Nazis, who were annihilating God's chosen people, and of course the Japanese imperialists who were slaughtering thousands in the Far East. Did God foresee in 1776 that He would need a nation some 165 years later to rescue His people? Oh yes. Oh yes. So, you're looking at me like, how does this relate to Donald Trump and these midterm elections? Where are you going with this? Well, hear me out. By the time the 2016 election came around, our Democrat leaders, as you all know, Mr. Gee, which is why you raised up this club, our Democrat leaders were well on their way in their unspoken desire to eradicate John Winthrop's vision of America as a New Jerusalem, America as a city on a hill, America as a light to the world. Under Obama, we were told that we were no longer a Christian nation. Happy holidays replaced Merry Christmas. We are a nation without borders. Our best and only ally in the Middle East, Israel, was scorned and rejected. The bust of Winston Churchill removed from the Oval Office. Through Common Core, we had Washington bureaucrats trying to teach our children a values-neutral, morally castrated version of American history, while our president traveled the world apologizing for this greatest country that's ever been. The economy limped along, and manufacturing jobs, we were told, were never coming back. America had not only lost its way, through through the Iran deal, America, the New Jerusalem, was actually aiding and abetting the oldest and most feared enemy of the Old Jerusalem, the Persians of the Old Testament, Iran. And so those of you in this room and millions of others around this country prayed and worked fervently, hoping that God had not yet given up on us, America, this new Jerusalem. And so in 2016, we knew if Trump didn't win, the America that we knew, that our parents fought and some died for, that our grandparents who fought and some died for, would cease to exist. And so we worked like it was up to us. We prayed like it was up to God. And by golly, Trump got elected. Thank you very much. And you know this answer to this question. And what has he accomplished? More than you and I had ever hoped for. Judges, conservative judges, the tax cuts, the economy, religious freedom, ISIS utterly defeated. A mortal enemy of Israel gone. For the first time in our history, America, the New Jerusalem, recognized the Old Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and we moved our embassy there. It's truly historic. Prosperity, record numbers of people working, black, white, brown, rich and poor alike. So, back to these midterms here, today, tonight, this week, and until next Tuesday. If you believe that America was and still is called to be a light to the world, a city on a hill, a beacon of hope for oppressed people everywhere, then we must keep the Trump revolution going, and the only way to do that is to elect every Republican to every office that we can find throughout this county, throughout the villages, throughout the state, and throughout the United States of America. If our side does not win this grand restoration project, this revitalization, these first 2 years that Trump has become, it all comes to a screeching halt. So I'm going to read a quote from Abraham Lincoln in 1862 that he gave to the nation when we were involved in our first Civil War, because as I posted on Facebook many times, I believe we're involved in our second Civil War. It may not be that the other side are carrying guns, it may not be that the other side is wearing uniforms, but make no mistake, we are still in the second Civil War, and we are fighting for the heart, soul, and culture of the greatest nation that's ever been. So, words of Abraham Lincoln, spoken in 1862, I believe are just as relevant today as they were 150 years ago. And here's what the founder of our party said. Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We will be remembered based on the choices we make, the fiery trial through which we pass. And let me digress. We are in a fiery trial. We see what happened in Volusia County. We see what happened in Pittsburgh. We see what happened with the pipes and the bombs, and on and on. We are in a fiery trial. The fiery trial through which we pass, said Mr. Lincoln, will light us down in honor or dishonor. We hold the power, but we bear the responsibility. We shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of man on earth. The way is plain, a way which, if followed, the world will forever applaud, and God must surely bless. Those words are true today. So, folks, I believe every generation is called in defense of freedom. Freedom is not the natural state of things. Tyranny is the natural state of things. Every generation is called in defense of freedom. So, those of us in this room, we must speak, we must stand, we must do everything possible to defend our president, to get our Republican candidates elected, and most importantly, fight through the ballot box, fight those who would destroy this great nation. And that means Rick Scott, Ron DeSantis, and every other elected Republican down the line, all the way to the bottom of the ticket, which is the order of the, right there. Thank you, Mr. Price. It's now up to us. We We are at the 11th hour. In fact, it's about 11:45 in the election time clock. You, me, all of us. The U.S., as Nick so rightly said, is a light to the world. It is a city on a hill. We must not let that light grow dim on our watch. Let's ask for God's blessing on this United States, on the Republican Party, and on this election. May His will be done, and let's get it done for the country and for God. Thank you.
Two great patriotic messages, Nick and Peter. Matt, you got a tough act to follow when you come up, but we're going to hear another song from Josh. Josh, this song has a little personal touch to it, and it's a local song that you come up with from a local tragedy. Is that correct? Okay, here's Josh.
You hear me okay? Yeah, all right. I'm glad you can hear me. I want to give a shout out to Nick over here. Where's he at? Nick. That's my good buddy right there. And this year, he finally talked his gorgeous girl, Sadie, into marrying him. So y'all. They're some dear friends of ours, and we love them so much. And we're actually on our way to sing in Washington, D.C. Sherry McKnight and Tony McKnight are amazing people in my life, and they introduced us to Nick and Sadie. Nick so generously said, "Hey, come and sing, for us up there in Washington." We were sitting in the airport on April the 19th of this year, and my phone started ringing, and I'm like, oh. And I looked down, and it was a bunch of my cop friends. Because, you see, I retired from law enforcement after 13 years up in the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. And all of my cop friends were calling me. And they were like, you won't believe there's been a tragedy that happened up in Gilchrist County, Florida, a little town called Trenton. And two guys that I knew, both of them had walked into a Chinese restaurant there. And when I tell you this is a small town, they have one light. And sometimes it works. This town is so small. And they both walked into this restaurant just to sit down to get a bite to eat before their shift started. Both of them were in uniform. And a coward walked in with a gun and shot both of them dead before they even realized what had happened. When I read that, and when I saw that, and when I started realizing it, I just was blown away that this actually hit close to home for me. And I was just like in tears at the airport. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I talked to as many people as I could talk to, and then I got on the plane. And we were in the air, and we flew. We landed in Washington, D.C. We were supposed to hook up with Nick and Sherry and all those guys. And my wife looked over at me while we were in the Uber, and she says, "We got to write a song for these guys." And I'm like, how do we write a song for these two heroes that were out just doing their job on a regular day? And just like you, sir, you were a law enforcement officer as well. You just never know. And sometimes it's scary. And both of those officers were good men. I knew both of them. And I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know how to write this song. She looked at me and she said, it's going to be called Hometown Strong. This is Hometown Strong. I hope you enjoy it. When the rumor came through, I prayed it wasn't true. Stuff don't happen here. We've never lived in fear. But when the facts came in, hate killed our friends. Together we'll stand, so neighbor, take my hand. We're hometown strong, no one hurts alone. United we stand, divided we fall. Hometown strong. While the tears they fall, subside. We won't see color with these eyes. Our heroes would be proud if they could see us now. Their sacrifice was made, now only love remains. We're hometown strong, no one hurts alone. United we stand, divided we fall, hometown strong. Cry for you, fight for you, walk through the slide for you. Most of all, we'll always remember you. Thank God for all of our law enforcement, all of our veterans. We love you guys so much. No one hurts alone. United we stand, divided we fall. Hometown strong. We're hometown strong. No one hurts alone. United we stand, divided we fall. Hometown strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Hometown strong. Hometown strong.
Really a heartwarming song you just did there. Our next speaker, Matt Staver, I was privileged to meet Matt, and to show you what a conscientious guy, he came in to Lake County to support a young 23-year-old gal running for a House seat who was homeschooled, living at home, never had a job, and he supported her, and she won the election. She's been Jennifer Sullivan, she's been a state representative down there now, running for her third session. I think she's unopposed, and she's just doing a wonderful job for the Christian cause in Tallahassee. And Matt thought enough for her. Here's a guy that argues cases before the Supreme Court. He's helped more people who have been abused by their First Amendment rights that they weren't allowed, and he went in there and helped them out. And it's just, we're so privileged to have him here tonight to say a few words. Thank you, Matt. Come on.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, David, and thank you all of the villagers for Trump. And Joshua, your music has been very moving, so filled with passion and need. So God bless you and all that you're doing. Liberty Council, I just want to tell you a little bit about Liberty Council. Most of you recognize or may know of Liberty Council in our public interest law firm component. And we are that, and that's how we were founded in 1989. As a religious liberty, sanctity of human life. And then later we added a third plank, and that is defending marriage and the definition of marriage, and now the iterations of natural, creative human sexuality that has gotten absolutely bizarre today. And that is our core. As a public interest law firm, the easiest way to describe us is we're the opposite of the ACLU. And, but we're much more than that. And so let me just tell you that I want want to tell you a little bit more about what we do, and then also about some of the things that are going on in Florida and around the country with regards to some of the issues that we face, and even the Kavanaugh hearings, which we were very much involved in the inside and on the outside at every step of the way, and with Senator Charles Grassley and the others that were leading that Senate committee hearing. But Liberty Council has Liberty Relief International, which is our international prayer ministry, and it goes on 24/7. In fact, before the election of 2016, some ladies and one of our prayer intercessors got together and they decided to connect with other prayer intercessors around the country to pray for this election because it didn't look like it was going too well. And as you know, it surprised everyone, I think perhaps even President Donald Trump, that what ultimately happened was a divine miracle. We started a prayer intercessory ministry that was going 24/7 at that time. We had it before, it was praying, but not 24/7. But since November of 2016, actually October of 2016, it is going on a national prayer call every second of every moment of every day from October 2016 to the present. If you plug into that right now, you will be part of prayer that's taking place around the country and even around the world. It's not one lonely person on the prayer line. It is a lot of people. So at 3:30 in the morning, a.m., if you're not able to sleep, you can go to Liberty Prayer Network, our Facebook, and you can plug into that, and you can be a part of the prayer that's taking place. And right now it's focused, obviously, on what's happening in our country, President Donald Trump, and the midterm elections. And that's just one of the many aspects that Liberty Council has. We also have Liberty Relief International, which is our humanitarian relief ministry that helps primarily persecuted Christians, but also victims of hurricane. And we began with the horrendous persecution that was taking place in northern Iraq in 2014, 2015. And that ministry helps persecuted Christians and other religious minorities around the world. Not exclusively, but particularly in the Middle East. We've also been involved in helping victims of hurricanes last year and even this year in the Panhandle and other places in the United States. And Christians in Defense of Israel is our ministry. I've been to Israel 24 times. And I know Nick is going to join us with his wife next year. We have a trip going to Israel in March 8, 2019. We are very passionate about Israel. And we created a wish list when Donald Trump became president. And that wish list, unbelievably, has already been fulfilled. So we've got to create an additional wish list that we actually... Our office in Washington, D.C., we have offices here in Florida, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and we have hundreds of volunteer attorneys all over the country. But in our office in Washington, D.C., we've been working on Israel-related matters, among many other things. And it has been amazing to see the speed of what's happened under the Trump administration in just 20 months, defunding the Palestinian Authority. For years, we have been giving hundreds of millions of dollars every year to the Palestinian Authority. And you could go anywhere on the Palestinian TV and the radio, and you could see what they were doing. They have jingles and rhymes and music in which they are teaching kids that would be the equivalent of kindergarten in their public schools, on their media, to be suicide bombers, to kill Jews, to call them pigs, to ultimately say there's only one land, and that's Palestine, that there is no Israel. And we have given $300–400 million every year under previous Republican and Democratic presidents until Donald J. Trump became the 45th president. And we obviously denounce anti-Semitism. About 10 days ago, we issued a press release when Louis Farrakhan, at the 20th anniversary of the so-called Million Man March, which didn't have a million men anywhere, but that's what they called it, he said that Jews were termites. And what do you do with a termite? He used that term, Hitler used that term. What do you do with a termite? When you have termites in your home, what do you do? You exterminate them with what? Gas. He referred to them as termites. President Obama stood beside Louis Farrakhan. Linda Sansor, the co-founder of the so-called Women's March, proudly took a picture with him. Keith Ellison of the DNC, in Minneapolis, and so many other Democratic leaders have proudly stood by a man who says that Hitler was a good man, who says that he's not anti-Semite, he's anti-termite. We called 10 days ago for those leaders to denounce Louis Farrakhan when he came out with, he is a anti-termite, and that word had Holocaust meaning, and not a single peep. And since then, we had the tragedy on Saturday that was a manifestation of the anti-Semitism that we see breeding, not just here in America, unfortunately, but around the world. We need to stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we need to stand with Israel. We need to affirmatively take a stand, and I am so glad that we have a president in the White House, Donald Trump, who is doing just that. And speaking of Jennifer Sullivan, we have a ministry called Covenant Journey, and it is designed to take Christian college-age students who are leaders to Israel. We are very selective. We have taken about 1,000 people. We take about 5 different trips every year. We underwrite that, except for $500. Those Christian college-age students who now come from over 300 colleges and universities, every conceivable kind of college and university, small, large, private, Christian, specialty schools, professional schools, Ivy League schools. Those that actually we select, they only pay $500. We underwrite the rest of it. And this is an amazing ministry because if you are discouraged about what you see happening in the young generation or the millennial generation, I want to introduce you to what God is doing with this generation. There's a lot of bad things out there, there's no question about that. But I am blessed. In fact, I was just with about 45 to 50 up in Virginia where we were having a reunion of some of them come together this past Saturday. They are from every conceivable profession. They are incredibly, I can't even begin to tell you, talented, and they are passionate about Jesus Christ. And they are in every profession, and now they're all over the world. And we see what God is doing to this generation. One of those Covenant Journey alumni is Jennifer Sullivan. She was selected to go on a trip in December 14, January 15, but she couldn't go because she just got elected and she had to go to Tallahassee to be sworn in. So she came to the January 2016 Covenant Journey trip. And she was an amazing young woman. She's always been an amazing young woman. On Wednesday, before we did our departure and arrived back in the United States on Thursday, Jennifer, and she'll probably kill me for saying this, she was just having a blast in terms of not only a spiritual experience, and that's really what this is designed to do, to strengthen their Christian faith and the roots of their faith, because we believe if that happens, everything else falls in place. And when they come back, they become goodwill ambassadors for Israel on their college campuses and in their professions, and now they're all over the world. And Jennifer is one of those young people. But on Wednesday night, when we're having our farewell dinner in Joppa, where Jonah boarded the ship in Israel to flee, that's where we had our farewell dinner. It was a beautiful setting on the Mediterranean. And Jennifer is enjoying her last meal as we bonded together. And she's sitting at the table balancing a spoon on her nose. And I thought, this is amazing. This is a representative, Jennifer Sullivan, having such a wonderful time with other peers that are leaders and of the same kind of caliber of talent that she had. We arrived back in the United States on Thursday. On Monday, she begins the next session of the legislative session, and then she becomes part of the resolution that opposes the so-called BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement against Israel. That's just one of many of our leaders. Another one of our leaders works at Lockheed Martin now. He works on the F-35 flight simulator, the new stealth jet. He was in Israel several times on the year that it was delivered to Israel to train IDF pilots, and he was there when the first 2 stealth F-35s were flown in from Italy to southern Israel with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and then Defense Secretary Ash Carter. And that's a young man who's one of our many young people. One of the youngest, in fact, I think still the youngest member of a city council is Gavin up in the Jacksonville area. He's another one of our incredible young people that have gone on this trip. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about some of our other core things that we're doing. With regards to the United States Supreme Court, we had a case that we just won at the U.S. Supreme Court involving crisis pregnancy centers in California. California created a law that says crisis pregnancy centers, in order to operate, you have to put a 29-word, 48-point font disclaimer or notice with the telephone number of an abortion clinic at your entrance, in your lobby, on your printed material, online, and on a billboard, in up to 13 languages, depending upon what city or county you're located in. So you can imagine a crisis pregnancy center saying what their name is and on the front page of a brochure, and then putting 48-point font. Go to your computer sometime and see how big 48-point font of 29 words is. It's huge. And this is what they required in every brochure, every piece of printed material, online, at the entrance, in the lobby, and on a billboard. In fact, it was so outrageous that during the Supreme Court oral arguments when I was there, Justice Sotomayor asked the attorney for California if someone put Choose Life on a billboard and the name of the crisis pregnancy center, does your law kick in? And with no shame at all, the attorney representing California said, yes, it does. And she was stunned by that. I think everyone was, but clearly that's what it does. And in other words, you would have, just with the words Choose Life, the requirement to put this language in up to 13 different languages on the billboard. You'd have Choose Life as a small little couple of words, and everything else would be telling people where they could get free or low-cost abortions. That was California, and that was a case that we won on the last week of the United States Supreme Court's term. It was handed down. Amazingly, that was a 5-4 decision. 5-4 decision. 4 people thought that that was okay. Even Sotomayor, who was astounded by how far-reaching that particular decision was. But now we've gone back to the state of California, and a federal judge just a week ago, less than a week ago, issued a permanent injunction against the state of California based upon the Supreme Court ruling, and that law now is void and is enjoined permanently by the federal state of California. And even better than that, in terms of not only does it help California, but Hawaii did the same thing. Those laws are gone in Hawaii and all across the country. And now California, even though we represent our clients at no cost, we don't represent the state of California at no cost. And whenever they violate civil rights, we go after a governmental entity like that for violating civil rights. And now they will be required to pay our costs and attorney's fees. The amazing thing, though, is on page 7 of that case, we have had 2 previous cases that we dealt with what's called change therapy. One was at the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals coming out of California. One was over on the West Coast, or the East Coast, coming out of New Jersey. It started in California. Now there's about 12 to 14 states and several municipalities or counties in Florida that have adopted these laws. What are these laws? These laws say that a counselor cannot provide, nor can a client receive, counsel to overcome or reduce unwanted same-sex attractions, behavior, or identity. So a client comes to a counselor having struggled with unwanted same-sex attractions, struggled with engaging in unwanted same-sex behavior, or having confusion over their identity, seeking counsel from a professional. In California, we have had a man. In New Jersey, we had a woman counselor who are licensed counselors, doctorate degrees. Both of them were sexually molested when they were young. One in New Jersey became involved in lesbian activity. The man in California in same-sex activity with other men. Ultimately, they gave their lives to the Lord and ultimately overcame that. And now they're professional counselors. They counsel on a wide variety of issues. And not only a wide variety of issues, but on this topic, they have direct personal experience with it. And they have clients that were undergoing counseling, young men or young girls, who had low self-esteem, who wanted to hurt themselves, who had difficulty with their peers, difficulty in relationships with their parents, came to these counselors and ultimately developed self-esteem, to repair the broken relationship with mom and dad, and ultimately literally said, this counsel saved my life. in California and New Jersey said, you cannot get that kind of counsel. The only kind of counsel you can get, even though you don't want it, even though you want to align your personal activity, your personal struggles with your moral objectives, your moral foundations, what you have to do is, we will not allow counselors to provide counsel that you have the hope of change. What you need to do, instead, the counselor, is override the client's wishes and have them change their moral beliefs. That's exactly what happened in California. The court, unfortunately, in California, the Court of Appeals upheld that law, created a new standard, saying that this is professional speech, not entitled to the same level of protection. The New Jersey court upheld it following California, and as a result, 12 to 14 states followed suit and several municipalities in Florida. In that same case involving the crisis pregnancy centers, on June 26, on page 7 through 9, as I'm reading this, thankful that this was one on the pregnancy centers, on page 7. You see, California tried to say, well, they could require these crisis pregnancy centers to carry their message because it's professional speech. They tried to build on what happened before. The Supreme Court on page 7 specifically mentioned our two cases, King and Pickup, and they overruled them. I have never been so happy to have one of our cases overruled. And as a result of that, we are now taking those cases back up to the United States Supreme Court. We just were in court in South Florida. Boca Raton and Palm Beach County passed similar ordinances. We're in depositions tomorrow and the next day. And next week, we are in a federal court in Tampa because they adopted the same thing. And here's the thing. We were, when we filed this case in Tampa, before a judge appointed by Barack Obama. I've argued before many of those. And I can tell you that those judges shred the Constitution because they could care less about it. 2-3 weeks ago, max, a new judge was just confirmed. And guess who he was confirmed under? President Donald Trump. This is a judge who worked at the United States Supreme Court before former, now departed Chief Justice William Rehnquist. So this is the judge now we're going before next week. Thank God that we have a victory at the Supreme Court, and thank God we have a president that's nominating good judges. Let me talk just a few moments about what we're doing in D.C. with the judges. We have an office in D.C. We have Liberty Counsel Action, which is our 501c4. And by the way, go to lcaction.org. lcaction.org. That's our sister ministry. It's a 501c4. If you want to convince your neighbor to vote for Donald Trump, go to lcaction.org, because what we did was put together a 9-page, single-spaced document of all the things that have happened in the first 20 months, and already it's outdated, and that's only been up there less than 3 weeks. If you were to stop right now, President Donald Trump, if he were to stop right now, we created categories for Israel: religious liberty, life, government, which includes national security, limited government, deregulation, so many other things, support for our law enforcement, and the economy. If you were to stop him at 20 months in office, he combined to all the previous presidents, not at the same time of their term, but I'm talking about Reagan, the Bushes, anybody that went before him, cumulatively, he would be, and he already has become, the most pro-Israel, pro-life policies, pro-religious liberty, pro-government in terms of limited government, responsible government, deregulation of government, national security, border security, and you name it, and pro-economic president in our modern history, and there is no comparison. I'm not exaggerating. We spent time to go through all of these things, and it will literally blow your mind in terms of what's happening. You will not even begin to comprehend that because the media doesn't want you to understand it. They want to obfuscate things because they know what's happening. And there is a fundamental transformation that is happening in this first 20 months. And that's why it's so important to go out and vote. Speaking of which, we have a table in the back, and we have information for your pastors and churches. Silence is not an option. We hope that you go back there and pick up everything that's free. We have pocket-sized constitutions and more. So make your way back at the very end. But we were very involved in the nomination of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Through our ministry, Liberty Counsel has an office. We have an office on the front side of Capitol. We have an office directly behind the United States Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is boxed in with the Capitol. We have an office on both sides of the Capitol and the United States Supreme Court. And we have a prayer ministry that's there as well. That's very unique. So we have a religious liberty, legal, a public policy, and a prayer ministry, all housed and located in Washington, D.C. So we were very involved in the nomination. What we did, interestingly, we don't really publicize this much, but we got the permits, like you get a parade permit. We got the permits for all of the sidewalks surrounding the entire Senate building in which the confirmation hearings were taking place. We went in and we got permits, which means we were the permit holder and we could choose who to allow to gather and protest or pray on that, and we didn't allow protest. So that was a place where we had people pray. On the first day of the hearings, when so many people were arrested outside and inside, they weren't doing this on the sidewalk, one of our main people went to a D.C. police officer and said, "This is our permit, they can't hold those signs on the sidewalk." He said, "Oh, you need to have so many people." She said, No. She called the chief of police for the Capitol, who we're good friends with, and we actually honor every year the outstanding District of Columbia law enforcement officer. And so she has his cell phone. She called him. He talked to the local officer, and then he made sure that all those people that had those bloody signs were removed from the sidewalk, because we were the permit holder, and we only allowed peaceful prayer on the public sidewalks. But we were inside and outside, and we physically, personally, and we have photographs and documentation of this, witnessed individuals who had bags of cash that were paying individuals, and then they would fill out a form that was called a civil disobedience form. So they were paid $50, filled out the form, they would go inside, and they were getting text messages. The reason why we know that they were getting text messages is because Peggy was sitting beside a woman who was in a wheelchair. There were several people on both sides, and they were all sequentially being told when to scream, what to scream louder. This lady not only had a wheelchair, but she had some eye impediment apparently, because she had her words on her cell phone very large. So Peggy's right beside her, she could read it. So when the other two people would scream and they would holler and the other one would do it and they would get carried out, now it came to her turn. So she gets a message to scream now, to holler, to scream louder. And when she came, the police officer asked her, "Ma'am, would you unlock your wheelchair?" And she refused to do it. So then 6 law enforcement officers peacefully came and literally physically had to lift the wheelchair up and take her out. It was so grotesque in that room and on the outside, with women painting fake blood on their crotch. All kinds of... a man walking around in a full-body human condom. He wasn't allowed in the Senate room, but he was on the outside. The daughters of Brett Kavanaugh, it was so bad that first day, they were taken out and they were not able to return again to watch what their dad was going through. Fortunately for them in some respects, but unfortunately how sad it is. But we were talking with the Kavanaugh family. They knew we were praying with them. We prayed with Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Chuck Grassley, who was exemplary in his support. He allowed our staff to come into his office and to pray during some of the particular times. But I just want to thank leaders on the issue of judicial nominations. Senator Mitch McConnell has been unwavering, and Senator Grassley has been unwavering. Understand this: 1 out of every 6 sitting Federal Court of Appeals judges in 20 months have been appointed and confirmed by President Donald Trump. 84 have been Trump two Supreme Court presidents more than any other president at this time in American history. He can literally reshape the judiciary for decades. And one of our people was so involved that she was invited to come to the swearing in the White House and was listed as one of the top 10 people in support of and very instrumental in the confirmation process. We have a justice now. We have two justices under this president. Unlike Reagan, as much as I loved Ronald Reagan, and the Bushes, that sometimes hit and sometimes missed. Because sometimes they would nominate the right people and sometimes political favors. I can tell you what, President Donald Trump is not doing that. The people that he is picking, he is listening to advice and he is picking constitutionalists. He is picking people that are outside that political realm but that are inside the constitutional jurisprudence that interprets what the Constitution and the statutes mean, that words do have matter, that they do mean something, and that we have to stay within that. So pray for the President, because, again, look at lcaction.org and see what's happened in 20 months. All of that, in just a week away, is hanging in the balance. Whether it's in the Senate, to be able to continue to confirm those, or in the House, to avoid frivolous impeachment challenges from the House. All of that. So go back and pray and do what you can, because we have just over a week away. And literally, as Ms. Nunez was saying, this is the most important election. This is second to 2016. This is whether we're going to continue or whether we're not. And from what has happened in 20 months, I can't wait for the next 2 years and the 4 years following that. But we need to get past this election.
I've worked with many Matt Stagers in their cause, and they had no chance in the last 8 years with the way our legal system was rigged, the way the media was reporting it, and now we see them moving forward. And again, I have to piggyback on what Matt said and what all the other people have said. This coming election is the second most important, and if you want to see President Trump really move, we got to get out there and vote. Now, let me tell you how the evening's going to end. Nick's going to come up for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm going to close it, and Josh is going to sing another song, but we don't have to get out of here like in our other meetings. Matt has literature in the back that he wants to hand out. Nick has some books, and Josh has some CDs here. So after Nick speaks, I'll come up and close it. Then while Josh is singing, you guys can go around and start, and you don't have to leave right away. Okay, here's Nick again.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, you heard me earlier speak about the United States of America and the predicament that we're in, and I want you to know how personal it is to me. I chose to come to the United States of America. I came to make, not take, to give, not receive, to join the place, not complain about it or change it. I came because I knew this was the greatest country in the history of the world. I came because I knew that this was the place that would afford me the most freedom and the most opportunity to achieve the dreams that God put in my heart. But I also came here in no small measure to make sure that the United States of America does not turn out like the country I felt I had to leave. The international perception of Australia is vastly different to the domestic reality. Most people think that in Australia people box kangaroos by day and wrestle crocodiles by night. And if that were the case, perhaps I might still well be there. But the reality is very different. Australia is and has always been an infinitely more European place. In instinct, in proclivity, in culture, in values, and in setup. And anybody that has even a cursory knowledge of policy areas such as gun rights or health care knows that America truly does stand alone. So I am on a mission to make sure that every single American, from north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between, knows how lucky, how fortunate, and how blessed they are to be Americans. But particularly our young, particularly the next generation of American leaders. I want to make sure that every child in this country has a heart beating for the United States of America. I don't just want our children to be lukewarm for America, I want them to be on fire for America. That's why I set up an organization called FLAG, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, one of the fastest growing non-profits in America today. FLAG is about two things: teaching civics in public schools and putting patriotism back in public schools. We do it three ways. Number one, classroom visits. Number two, the creation and distribution of resources. And number three, with professional development programs for teachers, teaching teachers how to incorporate American exceptionalism and patriotism into their lesson plans, curriculum development, and the general school environment. Last year I went into 42 public schools, and I was utterly alarmed at the dearth of even basic understanding or appreciation for the United States Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. So I decided to do something about it. We worked with interns from the late Justice Antonin Scalia's office to get the United States Constitution into simple, plain, easy to understand English that even a fifth grader can comprehend. We launched it on Fox News last year with a live 3-hour event on the Fox News Plaza. This resource has been a rocket ship for us. We get testimonials from public schools in California telling us how useful this resource is. On the heels of the stunning success of this student's constitution, in April of this year, with Bill O'Reilly, one of our board members, we launched the world's first kid-friendly Declaration of Independence. Same concept, same idea. And I'm proud to be able to tell you that as of 2 weeks ago, we now have either one of those two documents, our Students' Constitution and our Students' Declaration of Independence, in the hands of more than 250,000 American students in all 50 states. So successful has our Constitution been, and such incredible warmth has it received, that I am proud to officially announce here tonight, exclusively to you, no one else knows this information, but FLAG has officially partnered with the White House. The White House has transformed our Constitution into a colouring book. We did it for them. And every single child that comes into communication with the White House, either through correspondence or by meeting the President or the First Lady or the Vice President or the Second Lady, is going to receive a copy of FLAG's Student Constitution. And just next month we will release the world's first kid-friendly selected readings of the Federalist Papers. So we have the whole suite of founding documents, because we want to make sure that the next generation of Americans are tethered to and anchored by the virtues and values contained within our founding documents. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to close with this. America celebrated her 242nd birthday a few months ago. A time for great celebration, but I would also submit a time for sober and somber contemplation. Because if you go and ask any historian worth their salt how long great nations tend to last, they'll tell you somewhere between 230 and 270 years. And that puts America right in the kill zone. And to make matters worse, for the first time, the enemies of the United States are no longer only foreign. They are also domestic. There are people within America rooting for America's decline or failure. So the fight, the battle, the war, the struggle that we're going to have to embark on is going to be worse than any that we have been through before. But as a lifelong student of American history, I remain unswervingly convinced that our best days still lie ahead. From the early defeats by Britain in the War of Independence, to the loss of the Philippines, to Pearl Harbor, to the days following September 11, every single time America has been under attack, every single time freedom and America have been shoved up against a corner wall in a room, America has emerged bigger and stronger and better than ever before. It was Alexis de Tocqueville, the famous French nobleman who came out here in the 18th century, who observed in his sociological masterpiece, Democracy in America, that the true genius of the United States lay in her ability to repair her faults, to recorrect a trajectory. Those sentiments were echoed in an affectionate jibe by the greatest figure of the 20th century, the wartime Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir Winston Churchill, when he said, "America always does the right thing after exhausting every other option." And here I stand before you today as a third outsider, telling you that I identify the same resilience, the same boomerang spirit. For the last 60 years, ladies and gentlemen, there has been a culture war raging in this country. But only one side has been fighting it. They've done it with violence, the threat of violence, the hostile takeovers of universities, and lies. They are dedicated to nothing short of our complete and total annihilation. And in that pursuit, they are governed only by two things: the rules of Saul Alinsky and the Chicago mob. While this culture war has raged, we conservatives, we patriots, we industrious American men and women have been busy paying off our mortgages, saving up our money to send our children off to college. And we have consistently and continually and constantly sought the higher plane and prized things like dignity and propriety and collegiality, to the point now when we wake up in the morning, we almost choke on our bacon and eggs as we watch Fox and Friends, because we cannot believe what we are seeing. The high school down the road is changing its name. The statue outside the courthouse that's been there for eons has been designated for removal. The elementary school 2 counties away has officially changed the school calendar to read from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Every single day here in America, there is a relentless assault against our values, a relentless assault on our founding principles. And it is incumbent upon us to step up and fight this fight. This is a fight that we did not begin, but it is a fight that we must end. This is a fight that we want. This is a fight that we shall not shirk, that we shall not retreat from. This is a fight that we must win, because it's not only America at stake, it's the entire world. Let me tell you this. This right here, the soil that we have our feet on right now, is freedom's Colosseum. Freedom will live or freedom will perish right here in the United States of America. And the pages of the history books yet to be written will reflect the actions that we determined to take at this juncture. Did we invest in the next generation of Americans? Did we make sure that every American knew what it meant to be an American? Did we pass down Americanism? Did we make every conceivable effort to rescue the United States of America? Did we speak to every neighbour? Did we speak to every relative? Did we go into our churches and pull out our fellow congregants out of the pews and to the voting booths? Did we leave anything on the table? Did we decide to just pass it on to the next generation? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sick of these people. I'm sick of these people that are in charge of the cultural institutions that shape and generate our culture. They do not love America the way that you and I do. They don't believe in American values. They believe in European values. They want to change America into something that it is not, and it should never, ever be. And we need to make sure that they fail abysmally at their efforts to transform, to fundamentally transform, to use a phrase that all of you know, this incredible nation. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get out there
and let's do it. Let's knock on every door. Let's work as hard as we can. Let's summon every ounce of patriotism from the soles of our feet to the top of our head. And let's get this job done. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. God bless Florida. God bless the United States of America. God bless Jim Volpe. Ladies and gentlemen, before you go, I know Jim's about to speak, but before you go, we are up the back. I have all 4 of my best-selling books here. Please come and see us. We're doing a special deal. You can get the book signed, personalised, autographed, blessed, if that's what it takes. Please come and see us. We also have our Constitution and Declaration of Independence available for a donation. Thank you.
Folks, quick message before I do my close. All our name tags, if you could please turn them in as you leave. There'll be a bucket or somebody out there to receive it. But, folks, I want to close by telling you, we're almost a year into the Villages for Trump Club. Again, I repeat, we're 70-plussers, most of us. And I can't tell you how hard we work to make this happen, to have you informed by people that travel all over this country to fight for our cause. Well, I'll tell you what, if we get out there and vote, especially in Florida, for DeSantis and for Rick Scott, I am telling you, you watch this president rock and roll. Now, for closing, now remember, you don't have to leave. You can go see Josh over here. You can see Matt Saber's group in the back and Nick's back. But before we leave, I'm going to introduce Josh Taylor this time, and how I'm going to do it is Glenn Greenwood, watch out.
Hey guys, just real quick, I got 2 amazing things that just happened. Number one is I was able to release my brand new CD. It's got 6 amazing songs on it. Guys, come over here and check it out if you want to. I'd really love for you guys to have it. It's just a just my family and my wife. Well, I thank my God above to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands free, and they can't take that away. I'll be American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the ones who died and gave their right to me. And I'll never stand up next to you when the winners feel the day. 'Cause the rain goes down, I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, see the shining sea, Detroit down to Houston, all the way to LA. With every pride in every American's heart, it's time we stand and say that I'm proud
you.